So basically right here with chalk outliners I'm going to put my first window. I don't really know how to weld, but I'll figure it out. How hard can it be? This is the side of the container I chose to put my windows on. It will provide me the most light when I'm working in it. And in a torrential downpour, I chose that as the best time to collect my steel. But before I can learn to weld, I need to cut the required pieces of metal to length first. I will be installing 3 windows and a door, so I've got a lot of cutting ahead of me. Now I'm convinced this packaging was made by the devil. Fortunately though, it's no match for my new angle grinder. Despite having already welded whatever this thing is, I decided to practice my welding a little bit more before I committed to the container. Which turned out to be a very good idea. Seeing where I had gone wrong, it was time for another attempt. This time passing my scientific test of a hammer. Now for probably the scariest part of the project, cutting the container itself with my new angle grinder, which I'm only slightly terrified of. Now when I cut the shipping container, I found it had a tendency to want to spring out, so it's a matter of just clamping it up and welding it back in. After a quick paint job, I could rope my dad into helping me install the window. And then simply bolt it in place. And that is the window installed. So this has added great airflow to the entire building, and it's much nicer to be in here because I've actually got some daylight. And now I'd move on to the normal door because it's getting really sick of the big, loud, heavy shipping container doors which left me exposed to the elements. I constructed the doors slightly differently to the window, which I'll now try and explain poorly. Alright, so today marks the momentous occasion of installing a door. This here. Basically, it's an aluminium door frame. Wood's in the middle of it, and that's screwed to the frame, and then the steel is bolted to the wood, which will get welded in here. Kicking out the piece of metal is always anticlimactic because it's usually still attached somewhere to the container, which is rather annoying. What's more annoying is when you don't measure correctly. Fortunately, it was measured too short, so with the help of my dad, I could just cut a little bit more out. The next problem I encountered was this hook. I simply cut it off. Alright, so it is in. The frame is in. It's rather precariously held in with just 2 clamps at the moment. So basically I need to take the frame out, grind the paint out, put the frame back in, then I can tack weld it in. I'll need to paint it as well, but I just want to get the door in because it's 7, nearly 8 o'clock. Yeah, so it's welding time. It's all sort of clamped into pallet, so I just have to weld it, basically. And I have no footage of me welding, but here's some footage of me installing the door. And that is the door installed. It's been a huge improvement to quality of life because now when I'm in here, I can close myself off from the elements. There's still a bit more to do in here. There's a couple windows, but for now, I think that's it for the year. With 2025 now over, I could begin work on my workshop window in the new year. I would change construction on this window again, namely due to the window not lining up with the corrugations correctly, as I'll show off later. This being the biggest hole I've cut in the container so far, you can really see how much it's flexing when I cut. It's quite astonishing. So much so in fact, I stuck some scrap wood just to try and control how it fell on the final few cuts. Having taken out my camera, it was time to weld the uprights to the frame. I was really proud of this weld because it was the first one I did that didn't look like shit. The big window shows just how much the steel in the container flexes once cut. The steel frame on this window protrudes outside of the container as the frame of the aluminium window wouldn't line up with the corrugations correctly. But with everything now clamped up, it's back to welding. I used a block of wood here to hold everything in place while welding, as everything was shifting a bit on me. Then it was a simple matter of getting Dad to hold up the window for me while I drilled the holes out for the bolts. But impatience may have got the best of me. So the last bolt up here destroyed multiple drill bits. It just wasn't going well. As you can tell, it is now night time. I've added screws up here just to try and pull it in. Otherwise the top wants to fall out on me. And the best part is, I am in a race against the weather because it's going to rain tomorrow, so I still need to silicone up all the gaps. Yeah. So, hit torch on. So on my 13th hour on this project, I siliconed up the window, preparing for the bad weather to come. Basically, I've got the frame here for the last window. Let's get welding. I use the offcuts from the container to create the slip so the frame sits flush with the container. Right. And a slight race against the weather, but I should be able to get this window done. Yeah. frame is built. I just need to strip the paint around the edges so I can weld it in place. For this upright, I cut a bit out of the metal so I didn't have to be so aggressive in cutting the hook off. Well, I've lost my battle against the rain, but what can I do? Just have to hope it doesn't get any worse. For the final window, I was much more confident in my welding abilities, so I was just trying to put a full bead across each seam, as opposed to the last windows which were more or less tack welded in. I also added some leather to the welding helmet to stop arc flashes coming under the helmet. 2 windows. I just want to use this spray foam here around the edges. Oh, fuck. Which I made a right old mess of. So that's windows 1, 2 and 3 installed. And a door. Now my procrastination is off the charts. I've since installed this dividing wall to the office. So yeah, there's a hell of a lot more that needs to be done in here. So if you want to stay tuned for that, subscribe. Otherwise, thanks for watching.